Hi, Joe Franco here. I want to invite you next Wednesday, December 28th at noon Central to the Valley Percussion Festival's Facebook page. Host Gilbert Garcia and myself will be talking drums, drumming, drummers, and whatever comes up. Hope to see you there.
There. Test, 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 test. Mic test. 1, 2. Awesome, awesome, awesome. Okay. So, guys, super stoked to be here. Um, Guest co-host Dave DeCenso and legendary drummer, legendary icon Joe Franco is going to be here with us. Without further ado, Here we are, Mr. Dave DeCenso.
Yo! Did you all hear that killing drumming on that video? Man, just so good. Joe Franco.
Yes,
Thanks for having me,
yes.
guys.
Well, it's an honor, uh, Dave. We've had you in the streams before, and man, you tore it up at BBPF 2021. Man, that was something to see.
Thanks, Gil. That was fun.
Yes, yes, it was. Yes, it was. And now we have to bring you and Joe. We have to bring you and Joe to the live event down to South Texas and feed you some authentic Mexican cooking.
Oh, that sounds good to me.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. Um, well, Dave, it's awesome. It's great to have you. I think the introduction to our guest today would be better if it comes from you than if it comes from me.
Um, okay. Thanks for putting me on the spot, Gil. So, um, you know, okay. So, Joe, as you could see if you watched that introduction, is a killing drummer. Um, like he's a little older than me, so he's got that history uh, in his playing, like the history that he actually lived versus some of the history that I just am privy to, via whatever, the internet or just listening to music. And he grew up with a lot of the people that I grew up listening to. He was part of he was already part of the music scene at that point. He's he may be fresh faced looking, like 30 years old still, but he's been around for a while, doing it for a long time, and he's one of the greats. And I haven't seen that footage. I keep
Definitely.
going back to that footage, but I haven't seen that footage in so long, and it's just like, I don't know, somehow I'm appreciating it even more than I did back then. Just the quality of his playing, his ideas. He had a unique voice, which was not easy to do back then. Like there were a lot of double bass drummers coming
Yes.
up and playing hard rock and metal, and Joe had a sophistication to his playing while still being tough sounding and
Yes.
organic sounding,
Yes.
um, and we actually go way back to, I believe it was 1989. My dad, my late father, used to own a drum shop, and it was a
Oh,
great
yes, yes, yes.
shop
That's right.
down on the South Shore of Boston, in a town called Quincy, Massachusetts,
Quincy.
and he had a lot of great clinicians over the years. He was big on education. He was a great teacher himself. He was my first teacher, and he had Joe. I believe it was 1989, and I,
Wow.
yeah, yeah, and yeah. So, and I remember that clinic. Because Joe not only played great, but he taught great. And I was
Yes.
just speaking with one of my students yesterday about how it's a lot of great drummers are not great teachers, and a lot of great teachers are
Yes.
not great drummers.
Yes. So
And
true.
Joe,
So
yeah,
true.
I don't even know if Joe does any teaching anymore, if he ever really did, but he did a clinic, and he was so clear and hip. Like his
Articulate.
ideas were cool, and he played great. And then I saw him years later playing with Twisted Sister, or maybe it was Dee Snider's. Might have been Widowmaker. I believe it was a
Yeah.
band called Widowmaker. And he sounded great. And I probably have seen him, maybe over the years at maybe a NAMM show or something like that. But other than that, I haven't seen him in uh, decades. So I'm really looking forward to hanging with him today. So that's
Yes,
my
yes.
introduction of the great Joe Franco. I'm sure somebody could have done better than I did, but that's what I got for you.
Yes, and his drumming is relevant today. The drumming he did in that video is so relevant today. Today,
Yeah.
back
Yeah,
then, like,
man.
you know,
Yeah, that's
yes,
no small feat.
yes, yeah,
It's no
exactly,
small feat.
exactly. Eh,
Not to mention the sound. Like he had a sound and he
oh,
has a sound. Um, and I'm a big fan of just, good vintage drum sounds.
yes,
And he had that going on too in that instructional video.
yes,
Um,
yes, he did.
which apparently he said it was recorded in his basement, all those
Yes,
years ago. And it's like it's not necessarily hi-fi, but it's like it's it's like you can hear the the qualities, the characteristics of
yes,
the drums.
yes,
He tuned them well. He knew how to hit them to get a
yes,
great sound. And this was back before um, power stroke threes, where
yes,
you didn't have that built-in low end to the head like you do now.
yes,
A lot of the
yeah,
heads, so you
yes,
had kind of slappy, kind of dirty bass drum sound, but it still had body and like it wasn't
yes,
quite as much low end. Um, anyway, I could nerd out on that stuff. We'll nerd out on that
yes.
stuff perhaps when Joe gets here,
Absolutely. And
if he.
huge drum roll now for the um yes.
Yeah,
Dave, Gil.
Joe.
Okay, here we go. I'm going to
Joe.
take you back to that day in the drum shop.
Oh, look at that.
Oh,
Look at that, man.
I think you were watching from behind the counter or something. And here is me with two of the greats.
Oh, man. Gosh, that two of the greats is right. Three of the greats.
And Dave, last time I saw your dad was at Lenny's wake. I don't know if I told you that, but
Yeah.
yeah, it was very special. It was very special. It was not well, it wasn't a small drum shop, but like 90% of it was filled with drums.
Oh,
And
and it
somehow they
actually was kind of
squeezed.
small.
It
I'm
was
sorry,
okay,
Joe. It
and
was
and
kind of
most of
small.
it was drums, right?
Yeah, for sure.
And you know what, Dave? I had this on this morning, but it got a little warm. It got warm in New York today.
No way.
Yeah, baby.
oh,
Wow. That's beautiful,
So,
Joe. Thanks for
and
bringing that out, man.
and the check's in the mail for that introduction.
I speak the truth, man.
I'm
yeah.
humbled. I'm humbled.
But
Joe,
but
you're
but
you're a
in all
special cat, man. And
yeah.
it's like, the Tommy Aldridges of the world, and Tommy was a huge influence on me, but they're like the Tommy Aldridges of the world, like they're the ones who were more of a household name, and with all due respect, but you were one of those guys. And
Yes.
I don't know. I feel very strongly about your contribution and just being able to hang with one of the guys who was one of the cats, man, like one of the heavy cats, and such a great dude. So again, I told Gil that I really appreciate you guys and letting me be here and hanging out. And so
I
thank you again.
appreciate you taking the time to hang with us here because
Yes,
it's
Yes.
man.
just going to be so fun. Just fun
Yeah, my
chatting
pleasure.
about wherever you guys want to go. I'm here. Let's hang.
Sounds good.
Um, yeah.
That
So
that was
let me
quite an
start by. I'd like to actually
go ahead.
say, Dave, and you'll get a kick out of this. I don't know what everyone did creatively during the pandemic, but I decided to take some drum lessons. Okay. Never really happy with my grip. Okay.
Hmm.
I was very German left hand from slamming back beats with Dee Snider for many years, and, the other guy was dancing all over the place. He was here, he was down here, he was up there, and I was so far from matched, and like I developed from that heavy German backbeat that I kind of learned from Tony Williams. Believe it or not, I took a few lessons from Tony way back when he was in the original, not the original Lifetime, the Lifetime with Holsworth, that era, early 70s.
Uh-huh.
And Tony was like, yeah, you're playing real strong, but you got to play with your hands. And I started holding the sticks back here, and my main fulcrum was my pinky, and I got so much power out of that because, it's kind of like a baseball player, you're hitting for power, you're at the very end of the bat,
Yeah, yeah.
and I actually, over the years, to develop more control, wound up taking a little off my stick, using a different stick. So even if I held it at the end, I had some control. Anyway, so long story short,
Do you mean taking something off your stick widthwise or lengthwise or what?
yeah, I went from a five. This is a Super 5A. It's like a beefy, longer, heavier 5A. I
Gotcha.
went to something. I use Zildjian sticks, and I went to something they have called a 5A Acorn, which is like a mini. I like an acorn tip. It was an
Me too.
acorn, but not as big as this one, and it was a
Mhm.
little shorter, so I could hold it at the very end, and at the same
Mhm.
time, have control. Anyway, long story short, I developed a lot of tendonitis from whacking, and I read a thing in Modern Drummer from one of your students, okay, and I said, let me look this guy up and check him out, and it was Bill Bachman.
No way. I was wondering if you were going to say Bill Bachman. Yeah, I
Well,
still have
he
students who study
idolizes
that.
you. He says, I know there's no such thing as the greatest of all time, but Dave is the greatest of all time because the impression you left on him at Berkeley was just like lifelong. And that was so cool to hear that because, yeah, so full circle here. So I
Yeah, yeah.
decided to do that. And he kind of turned it around a little to what we call American grip,
Mhm,
and
mhm.
and I spent a lot of time over the pandemic taking lessons with Bill and getting into all sorts of things from warm up routines, which I was going to talk about today, to what we most call the hybrid rudiments that weren't around, back in the early Nard, the green covered Nard book. We didn't talk about pataflaflas and all these. So I took a liking to all that stuff, became a total pad nerd over the last couple of years, and now I'm developing, getting into the Gatherman book and all that stuff that I kind of wouldn't be able to do had I not studied with Bill. So kudos to Bill, and
Yeah,
kudos
Bill.
to Dave for being Bill's instructor. So full circle here.
Awesome. That's
Yeah, I
great,
thought you'd
man.
dig that.
Well, I'm curious to know. I've had a lot of trouble with tendonitis, like a lot of trouble. I'm actually dealing with it still, and putting a lot of time into it of late, like doing myofascial release and different kinds of stretching and strengthening and reassessing my technique and all this stuff. So I'm curious to know what some details of your experience with tendonitis. Like what did it how did it limit you? Has it improved since you've assessed your technique with Bill? Things like that.
Totally. I would be able to play maybe for 15 to 20 minutes before it started acting up. Now
And
I
what was
can
that
play
like?
a
What was
really
that
severe
acting
pain.
up like?
Well, feeling like it was swollen right here, right
Mhm.
there, and
Mhm.
like to a point where I'd go out to a show or something and just clapping my hands hurt, you
Wow.
know, weird, right? It
Yes, yeah.
somehow it tamed down as I started practicing more using a closer to France technique. Um, it kind of went away. I don't know. I don't know. Speak to Bill about it.
That's
you know,
great, man.
but
Good,
yeah,
good.
it's been really cool. And there's no one grip. I mean, it depends on what you're doing, of course. I'm still
Sure.
up
Yeah,
here
yeah,
for
yeah.
finesse.
Uh-huh.
But I've been doing more middle finger fulcrum stuff. Really opening up and being able to play doubles that way, which is kind of
Mhm.
cool because then you can actually play doubles on floor toms and.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
Yes.
so anyway, yeah, that's what I've been up to lately. That I was going to discuss with Gil,
Yes.
and then you came in, and it was just so perfect. I said, "Oh my God, I've been doing all this stuff with one of your students, and how cool is that?" And Bill's story, he had a stroke 2 or 3 years ago,
I did
and could
not know
Yes.
hardly
that.
play,
Yes.
and had to teach
Yes.
himself to play again.
My
Yes.
goodness, I don't think
Yep.
I knew that.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Uh,
And
Crazy.
and and
You know.
he has
that's
he
so
has
crazy. He's a
footage.
young man.
He posted footage as he was getting better, and he would play, and he would show his progress. Yeah. You can find it in some of his Facebook stuff and in some of the
Wow.
YouTube stuff as well.
Jeez, man. Um, well, I'm glad he's better. That's
Oh, he's
incredible. I mean,
back.
he's a young man.
Not
He's
a
back.
hundred percent. Not a hundred
Oh,
percent, of course, by
awesome.
his
Jeez.
standards, but he's back. I mean, he's got crazy chops.
He does. He's got a great reputation too.
He's a good
He's a
teacher.
great teacher. Yeah,
Really
I bet
great
he is,
teacher.
man. I hear that from different students who've come to me who in fact, one of my current students was a longtime student of Bill. But yeah, so I've been hearing about Bill over the years, through different students and just how grateful they are and were to be able to study with him and how he's
Yeah, I
helped them.
mean, you know what a good teacher is. A good teacher is the guy that you want to get to the next week and show him that you really got it together, And
Yeah,
then, of course,
yeah.
I thought I had it together, and Bill just beats you down and tells you why it doesn't sound that good, and so then you're really pissed off, and so you practice 3 hours a day instead of 2 hours a day. It's fun. I revisited my youth, and
Yeah,
doing that
yeah.
between that and the GAD book, where you spend how many hours really trying to make something feel good, and the feeling you get when it comes together and it becomes
Yeah.
ingrained is so cool.
Well, kudos to
Funny.
you. Go ahead.
No, it's funny. I was on a thing with Johnny D the other day. He had a little Christmas show, and he invited people that were on the show
Yeah.
all year. And Steve was on, and I got to tell him that in person. I got to tell him that, and how much
Nice.
the book meant, and how much fun it was, and all that.
Nice. I was just gonna say, yeah, I was sad that I couldn't make that hang with Johnny D and you guys. I was gonna say, oh, kudos to you, man. For just after all the years you've been playing, to have the wherewithal and the humility to go get your ass kicked by a dude who's younger than you, and I just think that's cool, man. I think a lot of drummers wouldn't have the I guess humility is the word to do that. They wouldn't be able to surrender their ego enough. But
Yeah,
go ahead.
I don't have any ego, I mean, I
Yeah,
never, drumming is supposed to be fun and have a good time doing it, and anything you can learn, I'm all there, I'm all there to learn.
absolutely.
And because at the end of the day, it makes me feel good, I don't have any immediate goal for this new stuff I'm developing, but I enjoy doing it. Drumming to me is a hobby now. It's not something I'm not ready for the tour bus and to do that whole thing. I'm not as rugged as I was, 40 years ago.
Sure, sure.
But I wake up every day and I can't, I can't really feel good until I do 8 on the hand for like half hour. I know that sounds crazy, but that's what I do.
That's cool, man. That's really cool.
Yeah.
So let me ask you this. Are you a late night guy, or are you
No.
an early riser? So you get up early.
Yeah, my routine is I get up, coffee, I run a audio post production facility remotely. Thanks. One of the good things about COVID, it made the work from home thing very common. So I do what I got to do, get work going, have breakfast, and then I go to my drum room and I'm there until I'm hungry again. So then I go up.
And is your drum room off site from your home, or is it?
No,
at your
it's being used right now by my daughter. It's a couple of rooms over. This is the
Nice.
basement of the house. Yeah.
Cool.
I moved out to I moved up to Pelham, New York. Got this house about 5 years ago. It's right outside the city. It's basically I can walk to the Bronx.
Nice.
And it's really great because all my stuff was in storage for so many years, and all my vinyl, all my drums, all my stuff, and because I was living in the city for 30 years, so we got this place, and more we were hardly in the city, and then the pandemic hit, so we said goodbye to the city. This is a 28-minute commute on the Metro North, so it's like taking a subway. So that's but that's my routine, have a drum room. And we spend half our time in Florida now. We have a place down in Palm Beach, and I just bought a real high-end Roland kit for the Florida. See, Florida doesn't have basements. It's a problem.
Right.
So and the Roland rep, who I don't know if you know Jim Petersak.
I do. I mean, it's been a long time, but I know
his
the name.
Son is the Roland rep.
Cool.
He's the artist guy at Roland. He, took care of me, and I can't wait, to and apparently the electronics are getting so crazy good now. He told me that Vinny's doing records with these things. And I said, what?
Really?
I mean, I'm sure not the high end records, but I'm sure, you hire him and he does a Roland track for you. And supposedly all these tracks go on, you could throw this whole thing in Pro Tools, everything's on its own track, and add ambience and just make it what you want, which is kind of cool. So I'm looking forward to, we go down again on Saturday, and I think I get the kit of the following week. So I'm looking forward to that, practicing on that, because I do miss the drum room when I'm in Florida, and so that'll, kind of take care of that, Where are you living?
I live in Manchester, New Hampshire. So
Okay.
I'm 45 minutes north of Boston.
Oh, sure. Okay.
Yeah.
You've been there for a while?
Yeah, 18 years.
Ooh.
Yeah. A lot of benefits, couple of non-benefits, for lack of a better term. I wish that I didn't go so far out from Boston, because that's the only real scene in New England is Boston. So I have a little bit of regret for that. But at the time we moved, I was done with the Boston scene, and I wanted a better quality of life, something that we could afford, my wife and I. And we bought at the height of the market. It was really expensive, and Boston was crazy. So we kind of got out of Dodge, and we live in a beautiful neighborhood, and there's mountains to the east, to the west, sorry, and there's a river that runs through the center of town, and it's a walkable, I can walk to the river. There's a couple of parks, beautiful, like architecture. Not one house looks the same in the whole neighborhood. So and we've got great friends. Ever since we had a child, we really developed a community. So there are a lot of benefits. And yeah, so you take the bad with the good, so to speak.
Yeah. Are you able to, from your home, do you have like a recording setup? Or
I
do you
do.
just use it for, so that's great. So, in today's world, that's all you need, is a
Yep.
recording setup, and you can
I
work.
can record, and I don't do any in-person teaching at home anymore since the pandemic, and it's not because of COVID. It's just I uh, I don't I don't really want to share my space. I hate to say that because I do miss
No, there's
seeing,
nothing
you
wrong
know,
with that.
I miss
Yeah.
seeing people in person. I'm like a physical guy. Like I like hugs and shit, but I it's just I only have room for two kits in my basement. The studio's in the basement, and and they're two different kits, and I don't want people coming down, and I don't like having to go down and like reset up my shit or reconfigure anything. So
Yeah.
so yeah, so I'm doing a fair amount of teaching as well from the studio.
That's great. That's
No,
great. Whether you use Zoom or Skype or something like that. Yeah.
one of the two,
Yeah.
either one. Yeah,
No,
yeah,
that's awesome. That's um yeah, I mean, same here. I mean, I have a kit. I have a big double bass kit. I've been using DW for the last 20 years. And then I have my old 1967 Ringo kit. And the Ringo kit is equipped with the low noise heads and the Zildjian, what do you call those cymbals with the holes in them? And it's
yeah,
quiet. The
yeah,
whole kit is quiet.
yeah.
So, someone's watching a movie or this and that, I'm on the Ringo kit.
Nice.
The wife leaves, I'm on the big,
Yeah,
because it
man.
shakes the house. Unfortunately, it's down here. And because of the AC vents that go through the house, it's just like I'm
Yeah,
in the next room. You can't,
yeah, yeah.
So,
Yeah.
yeah. So anyway,
So your
how
daughter
about
must
you,
be.
Gil? How's
Huh?
Texas?
Texas is beautiful, and I gotta say, this stream, it took a life of its own. If you noticed, I keep exiting the screen because it's like I'm here, I'm having my coffee, and I'm like, wow, the history that you guys are sharing, and to hear what you guys have done to adapt throughout the pandemic. And the beautiful thing that I noticed is that you guys used it for growth. For growth, you went on, Joe, you went on a path to better your ailment, right? And now it seems like you added years to your playing longevity, right? And that's amazing. That's amazing. I'm enjoying it, man. I'm enjoying it. Joe, you are one, when I started drumming, and both of you, I gotta say this, both of you, I huge respect. I watch your content, I learn from it, I show it to my students a lot. Yeah, but when I started to drum in my teen years, you were one of my big drum heroes, and I had that double bass drum video, and I
You
played
dusted
it.
it
It was
off to make
VHS.
that promo.
By the way, I really like the way that promo came out, the video, and then
It's
you
great.
talking in between. Yeah,
I did too,
and
man. That
and
was cool.
yeah, and I actually I uh I played through that video so many, so like I think I ended up buying like two or three of them. I loved it, man. I kept looking at it, and you were a big part in who I am today as a drummer and as an educator. Yeah, yeah. And Dave,
Well,
thank you, man. Thank you for being here,
what's
brother.
so cool. Thank you. Thank you. What's been really cool is that I got a call from David Frangioni about a year ago, and he asked me if I was happy with the distribution of my book. And to be honest, after Dave Black led Alfred because my book went from Warner Brothers, DCI, Warner Brothers, Alfred, and it got to like I didn't even know anyone there, you know. And I said,
Yeah,
to be
yeah, yeah.
honest with you, I'm not really committed. And he said, we'd love to take it on. That's been really great for me because, you know, of course, the exposure that Modern Drummer can bring to it. But also, I'm writing a series of maybe a half a dozen articles that'll come out in 23 um, on the book for as a drummer, as the author, of, you know, author's perspective. Because there's so many things in the book. I mean, Dave, you can't put everything in English, and you know you want to put notation and this and this and this. But then when you start teaching out of the book, you get into all these different ways of playing the book, you know. And
Yeah, yeah.
so that's the stuff I want to get into, you know, the stuff that's really not in the book, yet it's in the book, you know, like
Yeah.
how many ways you go through syncopation or something, you know.
Right.
And so that's going to be fun. That's going to be kind of like a project for 2023 for me, you know, to, you know, just
Nice.
dive in, go back to the book and, you know, just talk about what I had in mind and what I've learned since teaching from the book, you know. So
Yeah.
that's going to be fun.
Uh, Updated. I know several. Being a public school educator, I see a lot of different books, beginner percussion books, right? From the very beginning as to how to count, right? Quarter notes, whole notes, half, and some of those books, some of the best books, keep updating and revising and updating and revising and updating and revising, and it's gotten to the point that they've made videos and they've made lessons now. This books
Mm.
was written years ago, but now instead of like, you know, it hasn't gotten forgotten. It's still up front and center because of all the updates and the introduction of technology into it. I think it's great, and I think if you were to do that with that book, it would just grow a second life to it. You know, in a manner of speaking, it'll just take off.
Yeah,
I
I
think
had,
you're onto something there.
well, I had
I think you're onto something there.
concepts
Yeah.
for a second volume. And then I was approached to do
Oh,
this video. And so I threw all the extra stuff, you know, 3 or 4
yeah.
stroke roughs, the 16th note stuff, 16th note triplet. Yeah, I threw all that stuff in the video because then things started getting busy in the mid 80s for me. And I
Yeah.
knew that I wasn't going to put the quality time that I'd like to. You know, a good lesson learned is that sometimes, whether it's COVID or um, when I wrote my book, I had played 10 years in this band, Good Rats. And then I went to this
Mm.
Canadian tour, and I came back at the end of '82. And for the first time in over 10 years, I didn't have a gig. I like, what am I going to do? You know, that's when I wrote the book. You know, now if I were going to gig, I probably never would have put that book out, or somebody else would have done something similar, and I would have, you
Yes.
know. But sometimes some really good stuff comes out of downtime. You know, whether it's, you
Mm.
know, I'm without a
Yes.
gig, well, COVID hits and no one's leaving the house, or you know, a lot of good stuff comes out of downtime. Yeah.
Yes. Yes. It forces you to stretch yourself in a different path, in a different direction, maybe, you know, even in a different field that you connect to what you do.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
Cool.
Well,
Right.
Joe, I I am really eager to see what you're gonna share with us on the practice pad. You were gonna
Okay.
show us some.
Well, yeah, I'll show you what I do every day when I get behind my pad. Uh, I have a pad
Yes.
right here. Let me just relocate. Okay.
Awesome. We can see it
Yep.
perfectly. Yes.
Yep.
Okay.
So for the sake of audience, 'cause
So
I know a lot of people are watching it on their small screen. I'm gonna exit Dave and me, and then I'll probably insert you, Dave, so you can interject with them throughout. Is that okay?
Sure.
Awesome.
go take
Awesome.
a nap, Dave.
So
No, I'm into this, man. I'm looking forward to seeing what you're going to do.
Well, if you're with me for the greater part of this conversation, um, I was kind of hell bent on making my grip a little more matched. I was really tired of my right hand being so much more flexible, whether it's here or whether it's down here or up here. And my left hand was bashing backbeats. So what I started doing, under the direction of Bill Bachman, great drum teacher, is turning my left hand a little over, not exactly French grip, but kind of what they call American grip, like that kind of thing. And what I do every day is just free strokes. I start my day. Where you throw down the stick and it comes up exactly where it was, okay? I'm basically bashing the stick into the pad and letting it come up on its own. So I do that, and I do a thing called, and this is very popular in drum corps, it's called 8 on a hand. And I do it 8-8-16, 8-8-16. Funny, I just saw Travis Barker do the same, like an 8-8-16, 8 on a hand. And again, if you're in drum corps, this is like everyday stuff. But for me, I never did anything like it. And now when I do it, I feel like I woke my hands up, And it's just at a slow tempo. I try to start really slow, And as I do it, I feel the joints and crevices of my right hand, and my left hand learns from it. Again, this is all an effort to be more matched. If I go up in tempo, something more mid-tempo, 120-ish. Okay, sticks are still coming up to vertical. What happens when I get faster is that I start employing more of my back fingers, okay? And the stick comes up not quite vertical because you just don't have enough time to get to the next stroke, okay? So if I get a little faster, like say, sometimes I'll add 16th notes to the last 8-note grouping. So it'll be like, okay. Again, I'm rushing through this. I usually start at 80, get to 180, and then 200 on a good day. Okay, I'm not that fast. So that's what I do for singles. I also practice molar singles. Okay. Now, if you know what the molar stroke is, in fact, a lot of you might not know what the molar stroke is, but you do it anyway. Okay. And that I was first hip to molar stroke by the late great Jim Chapin. He came to see my band play. Had a popular band in Long Island in the 70s called Good Rats. And, you'd be playing hi-hat. You can't play all downstrokes. You kind of have to play an upstroke, okay? So I play my hi-hat, when I was playing grooves, like with a up, kind of an up-down motion, down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up. So what I'll do is I'll set the metronome at whatever, start at a slow tempo and just kind of like, and this is really important. To get your left hand feeling the time. That's something we don't do very often. I don't play open-handed, but yet I try to have my left hand feel the time better because my right hand is so used to that. My left hand isn't, So it's basically let's try to do everything with your left hand that's just not used to doing. Let the good hand show the weak hand. Staying with molar, there's a molar triple stroke. And Jim actually pointed this out to me and explained it to me as a down, tap, up, down, tap, up. So you have or both hands playing molar. Okay, so that's my single strokes, all right? I do them every day. I probably spend 20 or 30 minutes just doing that. And then I switch to doubles, okay? Doubles, how I got my doubles together was from the late, great Al Miller. Al has this book called 1000 Triplet Roll Solos, okay? I never really remember the name of the book. I call it the yellow book because all this books had different colors of cover. All right, so what he did in these triplet solos is he would take a rhythm, like a triplet, so a swingy rhythm, say zippity-doo-dah, you know. So he'd play that in the triplet roll. Then he would double stroke the ghost notes, okay? So all right, so you can do that with any triplet rhythm. It really gets your doubles together. At least for me, it did. You know, that's was a game changer, that book. You could take any book that has accented triples. Shameless Self-Promotion. You know this book? Okay. I have these accent patterns on page 68, if you're viewing, where I'll have a 3-beat pattern. So it's like, but 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. But I play that in 4/4 over 4 measures. So if I play these 4 measures, 21, 22, 23, 24, it's just this. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so now I'm going to double stroke all the ghost notes. Okay, the way it's written, it's with double bass underneath it, so it's like. All right, then you throw the accents on the tom. And you sound like 3 guys, you know, one guy's playing these accents, one guy's buzzing on the snare, and one guy's rolling on his feet, you know. I made a career out of that. Okay. Speaking of doubles, this is, let me take it to the current day, as I've been taking some lessons recently, and I have a really cool double stroke. I think you could see that. I hope you can. I trace both sides. That's backwards? Okay. Let's try that. Okay, doubles. 4 different versions. Can you read that? No? Or is it backwards?
Yes, we can see it clearly. We can see it clearly.
Oh, good. I thought it would be backwards.
No, it's
okay.
good.
So what it is, you know, you're looking at doubles 4 different ways. The traditional right-hand lead doubles. Okay. Then there's the inverted double. Number 6 in stick control. Then you have the left-hand lead. And then the inverted left double. Okay, if you notice, that ends with the left, starts with the right. Okay, enter the right, starts for the left. Enter the right, starts for the left. Enter the left, go back to the right. You can play these 4 into each other. Let's say 2 bars each. Okay. Okay, picking it up. Okay, so that's my doubles warm up. What I do like every day after I do my 8 on a hand and whatnot, and really, really, really loosens you up. Doubles are kind of like Swiss triplets. It's the same hand motion. Okay, and yeah. Speaking of Swiss triplets, got a couple more things I want to show you, and then I'll throw the sticks away. Here's a cool thing that, again, I'm going to go back to Jim Chapin. Jim, he barged into one of my drum lessons years ago. I guess it was probably early 80s at the Long Island Drum Center, because Jim was teaching there as well. And he said, "Joe, I got this great lick. You're going to love it." I said, "Yeah, well, what's going on here?" He goes, "It's called the collapsed paradiddle diddle." Okay, well, we know what paradiddle diddle is, right? What Jim did is he collapsed the 4th and 5th note into a flam, and he said he played. Then he collapsed the last part of the paradiddle diddle, the diddle diddle, the 2 diddles. And instead of playing, he played. Okay, so now I wrote this out because it's probably good to see. Okay, this 6-note grouping becomes this. 3-note grouping, the 4-note grouping becomes 3-note grouping. Okay, so now if you play 5-3, 5-3, you get this. Or I can play 5-5, 3-3. This like became ingrained. It's one of my favorite licks because you could solo and play whatever, 6 5s into 2 becomes 32 notes over 2 bars, you know. You can use it for odd time grooves. For instance, like you can play 2 paradiddles and 2 5s for a 9/8 groove. So I'm just superimposing and doing things in 5. Anyway, it's a fun lick, one of my faves. And that's about it. I can share a couple of new things that I'm working on, and you'll see them warts and all. And these 2 new, what they call hybrid rudiments, one called a ta-da-cha and one's called a cha-da-cha. Dave, you're probably familiar with these. Okay, what's a ta-da-cha? Okay, a ta-da-cha is, you don't know what a ta-da-cha is? Come on, Dave. You got to hook up with Bill. Okay, so a ta-da-cha, we know what a flam triplet is. Take a triplet and add a flam on the accented notes. Suppose I put the flam on the last note of the triplet and I still accent the first note. So then it becomes, okay? So that's called a ta-da-cha. All right. Now, take it a step further. There's something called a cha-da-cha. Now at cha-cha, it retains the flam in the beginning and at the end. So sometimes these things sound better on two surfaces. Do you really hear what's going on? That becomes really good to hear what each hand is doing, because basically each hand is doing this. And you put them together and they're playing that at a phase. These are two rudiments I'm working on currently. And if it weren't for all of these hybrid rudiments I've been working on, I wouldn't be able to have fun with books like this, Gatherings. I love this book. It's not only great material, but it's so much fun to play because of the way it's written. It's written like, you can see the paper's like yellowed. It's all handwritten. It's kind of like looking at a chart from the 1920s or something. Not that I was around at that time. And yeah, I've been busy with this. I was able to tell Steve that personally a couple of days ago. So that's it. Enough yakking. Let's bring my friends back and we can continue the chat. I hope that was
cool,
okay.
Joe. That was
Wow.
cool.
Yes, super cool. Um, a lot of our viewers are young students, beginner students, beginner percussionists.
Yeah.
They barely learn how to hold a stick. Uh, the way that Valley Percussion Festival started. Uh, uh, I think I've shared this with you, Dave, in the past. Joe, it started 35 years ago. This is going to be year 35, and it started as a
Wow.
yearly live event. A
Wow,
yearly
man. I
live
didn't know
event.
that.
Yeah,
That's
and
awesome, Joe.
the one that started was my friend Robert Boteo. He's the one that started the event. He was teaching in public school, and his alma mater, UT Texas, University of Texas in Austin, was having a day of percussion. So he packed the bus and with his kids, and he made it a trip, went to Austin. From South Texas to Austin, that's about a 5 hour, 4 hour drive. Attended the day of percussion, and on the way back he saw the way in the bus his kids were like on fire, like, I want to do this and I want to do that and I want to learn this and I want, and so in his mind he was like, well, why don't we have this in South Texas? And that it started with a bus full of, students, high school students. I believe, if I'm recalling correctly, might have been some middle school students, some middle school students. And that's how it started, and it started to bring world-class education to South Texas. That was the whole premise of it. And in the live events, 95% of the attendees are students, middle school students, 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, all the way from to high school, 9 through 12. And our live events are packed, and the majority of them are those. The others are the percussion educators for those students, and the local colleges and universities. So that's how it started, with a premise of teaching kids how to learn and to appreciate. And yeah, so it's and now, thanks to the introduction of technology, now we can stream. um, the pandemic, we were talking about how the pandemic actually set us on a different path for growth and for betterment. It pretty much forced me to take it live, and to post content. And that's when people were telling me, like, where did you come from? Like, all of a sudden you have all these artists, and VPF 21, Dave, you were a part of it. 40 artists, world class, all of them. And like, they thought it was an overnight success. No, it's not. The reason why we have access to all these people is because Robert Wateo started it 35 years ago. So yeah. And so yeah, that's how this started. And uh, to have you, Joe, take a fundamental lesson, somebody of your caliber and with so much history, an icon, a legend in its own right, you know, to be able to take some of the students through this, I think is amazing, sir. Amazing. I think this is gonna have a lot of replay. Some teachers have told me that some classes they'll sit their students down and they'll hit play and watch the replay on our streams. They're gonna have a treat with you, sir. Yeah,
Awesome.
Yeah, Gil.
yeah,
Awesome.
yeah. So and we have to bring you guys down here. We have to bring you to the live event. It's crazy. It's over 550 attendees. It's at that
Wow,
level.
man.
It's huge. Yeah, and
Wow.
I just
That's
moved to a
great.
yes. It's huge, sir. It's huge. So yeah, but you know the reason why it's huge, it's because of people like you that make them so accessible. I remember growing up, all I had was books I could buy and videos I could buy, and that was it, right? That's how we learned. I remember the local drum shop, Jim Smellheart Music. He brought Vinny Colaiuta once. I was I couldn't believe Vinny was right there, right?
Mm-hmm.
And those were very few, far and in between.
Mm.
And now every year, I have footage, pictures of kids that Greg Bissonette invites them on stage, and then he's teaching them, and the kids are like this guy that traveled and played with David Lee Roth and Jim all these great cats. So that's what it's all about. And I've had some of my students, Joe, that were had told me, sir, I think I'm gonna quit because I'm gonna quit band because I'm gonna do this and that and valid reasons. But then Day of Percussion or Valley Percussion Festival comes, and they're like, sir, I'm not quitting. I'm not quitting. I'm not quitting. I love it and I want to learn it and I want to be like him or I want to be like her. Yeah. So, yes, that's what all this does. Yes.
Well, thank you, Gil. Like we need people like you. The music industry needs people like you. Um,
Thank you.
I would say desperately. The further we get into the future, it seems that fewer and fewer kids are playing instruments, and
Yes. Yes.
fewer and fewer kids are listening to music that is made on real instruments. And so you're doing a an awesome service to
Thank you.
any of us who are involved in music. Yeah, yeah, we
Yeah.
Thank you,
Right
guys.
on.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
appreciate you, Gil.
Um, uh, and what you're saying, Davis, is so true worldwide. Dr. John Wooden, very, very dear friend of mine. He travels regularly, overseas in different countries. And we were having a conversation not too long ago, and couple of months ago, and telling them how the pandemic has affected the kids, and it just they don't want to spend time with their instrument. They don't want to spend come to our rehearsals. And he says it's like that all over the world. It's like that all over the world. And he had just come from Argentina, I think. And it's like that. It's like that. You see, I hear the exact same thing I'm hearing from you guys here, from the educators over there. So, and you guys making yourself accessible, it's amazing. It's amazing that you guys, uh, you know, monsters in your craft doing this. I know me myself just by sitting here and having you guys here. It's motivating me. I always feel like why why don't I have his passion? And I'll beat myself up for a bit, and it's like I gotta do that. And this is what it does for me personally. So I can imagine what it does for little kids. Yeah.
Hmm.
Right on, man. You got to
Yeah.
share
Yeah.
it.
Yes. Well, Joe, any words of encouragement, of motivation, of you know, setting goals, anything that you might want to share?
Well, basically, I think you nailed it, and what you're doing kind of nails it. When you say, you saw Vinny, like, and he was right in front of you, or Greg Bissonette, and he's right in front of you. How can you not be motivated by that? Personally, I grew up without videos and books and all that. I mean, I had syncopation, maybe two or three drum books at the time. But I grew up watching my heroes at Fillmore East. Basically, I'd see Clive Bunker a couple of times a year. I'd see, Ginger Baker. I'd see, and
Yeah.
Oh man.
that's how you learn. But a big wow factor for me was when I went to a drum clinic, as you just brought up. I went to this basement of this church next to the Sam Ash in Hempstead, Long Island, and it was the very first drum clinic they did, and it was Carmine Appice's very first drum clinic.
Wow.
Now,
Wow.
we're dear friends, and we've been friends for like 50 years since that day. But he's got 5 years on me. But yet, when you're 19 maybe and he's 24, that 5 years is huge. He could be like your dad.
Yes.
Yeah.
So imagine. I took a couple of lessons at music schools, and they didn't even get you on drums or you're on a pad. And I remember being in a small room with my instructor chain smoking, and this little, it's horrible. He didn't want to be there. And there was no motivation to really, I'm going to kill this lesson. This guy doesn't really care.
Yeah.
Anyway, so long story short, I'm talking about motivation. I go up to Carmine after the clinic, and I says, "Wow, man, you're awesome. Do you give lessons?" He gives me his number. That's drummers, right?
Oh
Drummers reaching out
wow.
to drummers.
Wow.
I went over to his house and started taking drum lessons. And he's showing me this book he's writing. And of course, it was realistic rock. This is 72, maybe 71, 72. And so he would write some realistic rock stuff out and give it to me, and trying the stuff out on students, which was awesome.
Wow.
And I wanted to go and kick his ass, right? Because he was such a motivator. I mean, he was like a hero. He was like, oh my God, this guy's like a total, like, big name drummer, and he plays his butt off, and he's got so much knowledge. And I wanted to come back to those lessons and really impress him, and I did that for, he went on the road with Jeff Beck at the time. And we lost the drum lesson part of our relationship, but we always stayed tight. We'd always go to shows together and do stuff and shed, and but yeah, there's no replacing that. Drum clinics, being in the same room and watching somebody. Wow. And in my case, it just happened to be somebody who lived in the hood who I can actually
Yes.
take lessons from.
Yeah.
So
Yes.
that was
Yes.
that was a real inspiration to me. And 10 years later, it kind of inspired me to write a book, because it's like, yeah, I want to do that. A rock drummer who's an educator. That is cool. I mean, Ringo wasn't going to give you a drum lesson, or Dino Danelli, or,
Yeah.
they weren't teachers. You learn from watching them play. But like Carmine was a real teacher, and he would do all these Ludwig don't know, the big clinics,
Yeah.
where you had like 10 different drummers, or PAS shows, and
Symposiums.
yeah, big. Well, that's the word, symposium. But yeah, that was my biggest motivation. Dave, you had your dad. Well, how inspiring was that? What was it like taking drum lessons from your dad? What was that like? I mean, in terms of, like, he's your dad. You're going to see him at dinner. Like,
Honestly, at first it was not good, but I was so little. I was 5 years old when I took my first lesson with my dad, and I wasn't ready, and I wasn't a very good student. I was playing my drums a lot. Well, my dad's drums. but I wasn't practicing my stuff, for my lesson. I was playing along with records and
playing with records.
Yeah.
What records were you playing with at the time?
Oh man. So I remember I had a really cool collection of 45s when I was small. Some of the ones that I remember are You Are the Sunshine of My Life, Stevie Wonder, Get Back, the Beatles, Walter Murphy Big Band. They did a version of the Fifth of Beethoven.
That
the
explains
whole
your
I remember that.
Yeah, I had Dan Hill, Sometimes When We Touch, that ballad. Sometimes when we touch,
Yeah.
and my dad had big floor speakers on either side of the drum throne, and
nice.
and then I got into albums, like Zeppelin and Kiss and Yes, just all that, all the great 70s rock bands, and it was otherworldly, like you were just describing, Gil, that feeling of seeing me in person and just being like, wow, and Joe describing that sort of hero feeling of like, there's Carmine, and like it's like heroic status, and here he is right in front of me. I felt that way, not heroic necessarily, but just that feeling of like a magical feeling, playing to this music, loud, and I felt like I was part of it, like I was part of it. I was immersed in it. It was some of the best memories that I'll ever have still, So
yeah, like being in your first bands, those are really priceless,
magical
moments.
Yeah,
they never leave you. You learn a new song and it's like, wow, we got it down. Yeah, I got the lead down, check it out. And
or just
the whole thing
buying
coming together,
or buying like a new cymbal and a cymbal stand, and like setting it up and then walking around the drums and looking at it. It wasn't just about playing it. It was like where is this going to go? You probably knew already where it was going to go, but like you had thought about that. And, I know you guys both can relate to that. It's just so grateful to have been, exposed and at a young age. And I also had an older brother. He's still with us, but at the time, and he was a really talented guy, drummer. So he was another, right in under my own roof.
That's so inspiring. Sure.
Yeah, it's very inspiring.
Is he still playing?
So, he's not by trade, but he's got an electronic kit in his condo. Yeah. He lives down in Florida. So he's still, he's still got the bug. He's just he's not doing it, professionally per se anymore. Yeah.
I didn't have a built-in. Well, I did have a built-in teacher. My uncle played drums, and he had a
uncle.
My uncle, and we lived in one of those Italian households where my grandparents and our family and my uncle, and he got married, and they somehow found room in that house for him as well. And when he got married, he got a straight job. The drums were just collecting dust. It was probably a maybe late 50s WFL, with a 22 by 12, a 9 and a 9. Five and a half snare and a 9, probably 9 by 13. Yeah, 9 by 13. No floor tom. And so the Beatles came out at that time, and he showed me two beats, the rock beat and the twist beat, which are basically simple rock beat and the shuffle, you get the twist beat being da, 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 and the swing beat was ding, 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 ding. You can play Beatles, you can play the whole Beatles album, Can't Buy Me Love, or sort of standing there. so I played those two groups. And I played. I didn't have huge speakers, but I had like this Victrola right in the back of my head, and I would play those Beatles records. So in a way, it was under my roof. You know, my uncle showing me those two beats. Then
Yeah.
he says, "Well, yeah, he got that down." And he took me for lessons. You know, I hated the teacher, the one I told you about, chain smoker.
Oh,
But yet it led to big things, and I
mm.
remember those times. Like, and the kid next door played drums as well. So there
Oh
was
wow.
that thing.
Oh, yeah,
It's
yeah.
pretty cool when you have that going, because I saw the Beatles on Ed Sullivan. That was what did it. You know, I went down to the basement and I started pounding on my uncle's drums. You know, how can you not? They were there.
Yeah. We definitely are a product of our environment, and when we do our best as fathers or mentors, right, to put that person, with in the case, I'm speaking about my son, you know he would accompany me to all the days of percussion that we would do back then. That's what it was called, Valley Percussion Festival. And by the time he graduated high school, he had taken lessons with some of the greats. I remember one time Terry Bozzio. Those were the top two: Joe Franco and Terry Bozzio. Huge,
I don't belong in
uh,
that company.
uh, huge inspiration to me in my early years, and I couldn't believe that we had Terry Bozzio in our event. Well, um,
Wow.
my son had caught on to the fact that, if you go up to these people will talk to you, right? And it was the end of the event, and we usually have a big a meal, a celebration after the event with all the artists. It's a beautiful hang, and we picked up everything and we were good to go. And we were looking for Terry Bozzio. And and when they somebody told me, like, where's Terry, we gotta go. Oh yeah. And then, where's my son, like, we gotta go. So we were looking all over the place in that auditorium. And I opened the door to this room, a small room that it never crossed our minds to go in there. And there they were, sitting in front of each other, Terry Bozzio and my son, and they had been speaking for at least about an hour.
Mm.
And
Wow.
I was like, that was priceless. One of my heroes and my son, taking
How
all
old
this
was your son at the
information.
time?
He was about 16,
Oh,
Wow.
that's awesome.
16, because he was in
That's
high
Perfect.
school.
awesome.
And
Perfect.
he ended up playing with some of the best drum corps in the world. He played with the Bluecoats. And now he's now teaching himself in Houston, teaching some middle schools and some high schools. And so he's doing great. The thing is, when they're, the product of our environment, the higher the quality of the environment, the higher the quality, the higher the output, the quality output. That's one thing that I saw myself. um, and we do well when we provide that for our family. Like, okay, you like this? Well, let's go to the authority in this. Let's get that person, maybe give you some lessons, maybe go visit him or her. Yeah. I see, some of my parents will tell me, how can I support my son? Take him to concerts whenever you can. Take him to the music store, even if you're not going to buy anything, or if you're going to buy something small, a pair of drumsticks. But what you invest in doing this, it's going to come back many times fold. Yeah.
Hmm.
Amen.
Yeah.
Yeah, brother.
Well, guys, this has been amazing, amazing, amazing. I can literally say I've been in the midst of giants today, and wow, mind blown to have you guys, be the monsters that you are, and so humble and so down to earth. That is beautiful, guys, beautiful. And I'm sure that our viewers. I saw a comment. Um, Lee Rothstein. Is he a
Lee.
student of yours, Dave? Yeah.
Lee's
Was
an old friend of mine, and apparently it's honestly I'd forgotten um, that Lee ever took lessons with me. I'm sorry, Lee, but my first lesson with Dave was mostly about how to sit at the drums and also about grip. Yeah. Joe Franco talk about his journey and dedicated, educated to go. Yeah, Lee. Wow, Lee, I'd forgotten we did lessons,
Right
man.
on.
Jeez.
yeah.
Yeah.
Can you
Well,
watch this after the fact, or it's
yes,
only a live stream?
no, it stays there. I leave it there, and people can go back, and you'll see the
Oh,
replays go
cool.
up. And then I also download it, and then I'll chop it up into smaller segments, and I'll upload it as well. So
Very
yeah,
cool.
and I'll tag you on it, Joe and Dave for sure. And
Cool.
feel free to share it, guys. Dave, if you're down, sir, I would like to do one of these with you.
Sure.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Um, whenever you can. I mean, that one you did on VPF 2021, man. I still get people, when we go into some of our teacher meetings in our region, and it's like, man, Dave, man, was I still hear it till today. Yeah,
I
they
appreciate you
they, they
sharing
really
that, man.
enjoyed it, man. Yeah, yeah.
I'm glad
So,
to hear that.
gentlemen, we could go on and on and on and on and on and on, but I know you have lives to go back to, and I've taken enough of your time. Thank you so much for doing this. Uh, we
My
have to
pleasure.
bring you live one of these years. Joe would love to, if our schedules can will fit, and Dave as well. Uh, have to bring you down, and looking forward to doing this live with you, Dave. Um, guys, I
Sounds
guess
good, Gil.
I, I I I always tell my students, guys, I'm bad with conclusions, so I'll just tell them bye.
Okay. Well, great,
Well,
great to
guys,
meet you, Gil and Dave. Thank you so much for your time and joining us. It was so great to go back and memories of the shop and all that. Very
Yo, it means a
cool.
lot.
And
It
I'll be
means a lot
looking
to
out
me,
for
man.
you.
I'm sorry.
Cool, man. No, I'll be looking out for your interview. I'm now buddies with Gil, and we'll
Cool,
yes,
man.
may,
Yo, it means a lot to
maybe
me. Our
thank you.
our
Yeah.
history. I know it's not like we didn't spend a ton of time together, but
No.
it's meaningful to me. It means so much
Yeah.
to me that you brought out the sweatshirt and you have the photo and just to be here, man. Yeah. Oh, it's in good shape too, Joe.
yes.
Okay.
Dave, I really have to tell you this. You need to make that merch, sir, and you need to put it up for sale. I would buy some.
Oh
You need
man.
to do it.
Well,
You need
I
to do
can't
it.
promise you anything, Gil. I'm not like I've got so much stuff on my plate, but
On your plate, yeah.
um I'll see what I can do.
Yeah,
I'll
that
see what
that
I
looks
can
beautiful. Yeah.
do.
Yeah.
Well,
Great logo. All right,
Yeah.
guys.
guys,
Have a happy new year, man. All my best.
You too, Joe,
likewise.
and you too, Gil. Have a great day,
Likewise,
guys.
gentlemen, have a beautiful one.
Bye, guys.